Hi everyone, I just want to welcome you to my YouTube channel where we will be delving into the realm of the supernatural. I am Eda Smith and this is Auntie Eda's Story Corner and Poetry Corner also. Why? Because we're going to be sharing stories, both real and imagined, songs, poems, and real talk. We'll talk about duppy stories, about the supernatural encounters. You will want to subscribe. Come with me. Well, hi everyone. Now, I'm going to be sharing a duppy story from the Bible with you. Now, this story is really a supernatural encounter. It's taken from the Old Testament. It's taken from 1 Samuel chapter 28. Yeah, that's where it is. 1 Samuel chapter 28. That's where it's taken from. Now, in the story, King Saul is going to consult a medium of Endor. Now, what you want to know here is that Saul was in a very distressing situation here. Oh, poor Saul. He was trying to ask of God, hey, what's going to happen? Because Israel was at war with the Philistines. Now, you know the Philistines, they were strong. From them came that big giant there, Goliath, whom David had slain, yeah? Now, Samuel, this prophet, I want to give you a little overview quickly first. Samuel was a prophet in the land of Israel, very powerful prophet, and he died. And they mourned for him, of course. And the people, they still had great respect for Samuel, yes, but now he's a dead prophet. So the Philistines getting ready to war against Israel, and Saul, King Saul, he was a bit worried. You know, he keeps saying, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm not hearing from God, he said. And there are no dreams either coming to me or any of the other prophets so that I can know, because the war is on between Israel and the Philistines. And I want to know if I'm going to be victorious in battle. I don't want to go out there and not knowing that all Israel is going to be slain, all the men are going to be slain. And so, oh, poor Saul, he was really in a distressing way. However, what Saul had done earlier, he had gotten rid of all the people who could communicate with the dead, because there were people then, they called mediums and spiritists. He had gotten rid of them in the land, and so they forbid those people not to practice that art no more. And God had commanded too, in another chapter of the Bible, I think it was Leviticus, that no, those people who claim to communicate with the dead, no, none of that. However, Saul was in a different pair of shoes now, wasn't he? He wasn't hearing from God and he wanted to know what to do, because the next day he should be going into battle. So you know what he did? He called on one of his attendants and he asked him, he said, you know what? I want to know what's going to happen in the battle. So I want to find out if I can consult a medium. And his attendant said to him, there is a woman of Endor. Yes, we know. And Saul said, you know what? I want you to take me to that woman. I want to go to that woman because I want to ask of her. So what he had to do, remember now that he's the king. The king can't just big up his chest and just go to see this medium, can he? No, he can't do that. He will have to disguise himself, and that's what King Saul did. He disguised himself, and he went with his 2 men in the night to seek out this woman of Endor, who he expects her to tell him what's going to happen. So, okay, here we are, we're journeying now. And of course, you know, Saul is very afraid because the army of the Philistines, they were a very big army. And his heart trembled greatly before his heart trembled greatly, and he said, "No, what a big army! What am I gonna do?" And brother Saul, he has other issues, because he's worried about David, who he's so jealous of, because David had slain so many people, and Saul, he's a king, he's a bit jealous. This younger man had slain so many people, and you know how people are. Every victory that you have, they will clap and they'll cheer, but if you don't have many victories coming, sometimes they don't remember you, or they don't give you that praise and that glory that they've given you before. So here is Saul now seeking out the medium. And you can find that in 1 Samuel chapter 28, and I think it is in verses 7 to 8. Saul said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium," he said, "that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servant said, "Yes, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor." So he disguised himself, as I said before, put on all the clothes, and went with his 2 men. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Please conduct a seance for me, and bring me up the one I will name you." Now, he had not told the woman who he wanted her to bring up. Now, this woman is traditionally known as the Witch of Endor. She's seen as a witch, and many people think that people who can summon the dead are witches, or they practice obia. And some people, I think, place a lot of belief in people like those. Some people do not believe at all. Well, we move on. It's more accurate to call this woman a medium or a necromancer, one who can contact the dead. There's a Hebrew word for it, for medium. It's OWB. And they talk of these people, and they say these people will mutter and they will mumble and they will say things and talk to dead people, and they will come back and they'll say the person said this or the person said that, the dead. So this is the world of the living, and we have the world of the dead, and there are people who communicate with the dead from the land of the living. No, Endor wasn't very far. It was quite close to where Saul was. And he and the 2 men went. And when he went to the woman, and he said, "You will bring up the one I shall name." And the woman, she was a little bit afraid, because she remembers that the king had banned them. I told them that they shouldn't be practicing these things. So for somebody to come to you, like, here he is. He's like he's going to a palm reader now. That is it. Like you're going to a palm reader now to say, "Tell me what you see that's going to happen to me. I want to hear the will of God." Can you imagine? So here is Saul. There were other prophets in the land, but he wasn't hearing from them, as I said before. So this shows how far Saul had fallen, really, in his relationship with God, how it had affected his mind. And of course, here, Saul, he was just really at a really bad place, at a very low place. And the woman said to him when he went there, "Look, you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the medium and spiritist out of the land. So why then do you lay a snare for me? Do you want me to get into trouble?" She said, "Because you know that King Saul, I think, is punishable by death. If anybody were to practice contacting the dead, communicating with the dead, my life is in danger," she said. And Saul, he swore to the woman and said, "As the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you." Because the woman, initially she didn't know who he was, but of course after a while she found out after a while that he was King Saul. But he assured her, saying, "Oh, you're not going to be punished. Everything will be all right." Because the woman said, Why? You want me to get into trouble?" He said, No, you won't be punished, man. Just do this for me. I want you to call up somebody for me. Okay, so we move on. Then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And Saul said to the woman, "Bring up Samuel for me." when the woman saw the dead prophet Samuel, oh, she cried out with a loud voice. She was so afraid. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, why have you deceived me? Aha! You are Saul. You are Saul. Yet you came here and you deceived me, telling me to call up Samuel. She discovered then that, the king is in her place, is in her house, and he's asking for Samuel to be brought up from the dead. Of course, she was afraid and she was angry. And Saul reassured her again. And he said, do not be afraid. What did you see? And the woman said to Saul, I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth. So he said to her, and what is his form? What does he look like? And she said, an old man is coming up, and he's covered with a mantle. And Saul, he knew Samuel. He knew what he would be dressed in. And Saul perceived, he saw that it was Samuel indeed. And he stooped with his face to the ground. And Saul bowed down. Now here is King Saul. He's in the company of the dead. And although Samuel died and was buried, when King Saul saw that it was the spirit of Samuel that had come up from the grave, in fear and in respect, I would say also, because Samuel was a powerful prophet in the land of Israel. King Saul, he bowed himself down to the earth, even in Samuel's spirit world. He's no longer alive, he's dead, but he still respects and fears the prophet of God. So here is Saul bowed down to the ground. Why did Saul want to see Samuel? I told you. He wanted to know if he was going to be victorious in the battle, because the next day he was going to be fighting against the Philistines, and they were a great, great army. So in the midst of all this, in the midst of the demonic influence, Saul was just at a place where he needed to hear something. He needed to feel a sense of encouragement. Now, you can imagine the shock of the woman also. the shock of the witch. It was an extraordinary event for her, don't you think? It was a frightening one. She was not in control of anything here now, because Saul was conversing now with Samuel, the dead prophet. Now, to see a spirit ascending out of the earth, in that time, I suppose, probably, I don't know, is it the first time she has seen a spirit ascending out of the earth? I don't know. But she was very afraid, though. She was very afraid. So after this now, here we have Saul with a conversation with Samuel. The medium also could see the dead prophet. Saul was speaking to him and asking him, hey, Samuel, he wanted to know now what's going to happen to him on the morrow, or what's going to be the whole turnout of the battle. And you know what Samuel said? You know what? I'm going to explain to you. Yes, and Samuel said to David, tell you what, I don't like this idea of you disturbing me and bringing me up from the dead. He didn't like it. He was angry. He was wroth. He was angry with King Saul. He said, why did you bring me up? Why have you done this? Why have you disturbed me? That's what he said, really. Why have you disturbed me? So I want you to understand here that when people die, I think they don't wish to be disturbed. I think their bones and it's at the place of rest. As to their spirits, it's debatable where their spirits have gone on. But he's saying to him, you have disturbed me. So I don't think the dead appreciate the idea of being called up from the dead. And many people have done that in the past. And there are several stories, I think, of people who have said they've called up different spirits and they have been very angry. And you've heard of spirits slapping people, throwing stones, breaking things. That has gone on. And David, sorry, I keep saying David, I'm sorry, King Saul said, you know what? I'm going into the battle, he said to Samuel. And I'm not hearing from God, so please, could you tell me what's going to happen? And you know what Samuel said to him? The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand, King Saul. He has taken the kingdom out of your hand. And guess what? He's given the kingdom to David. David is going to be king after you. And that's what he has done. And because the kingdom has been torn out of your hands, I will tell you now, come tomorrow, you and your sons will join me. Wow, that's a serious business. What does it mean? Now here you have somebody who has come back from the dead. Samuel, the old prophet, and he's saying to King Saul, tomorrow when you go into battle, you and your sons will join me. Join me where? In the land of the dead, of course. So he's telling him that you're going to lose the battle tomorrow. You and your sons are going to die. And lots of other people are going to die also. Of course, you know what that meant for King Saul. He was even more distressed now and even more depressed, having heard that. Can you imagine? If you had not made a will, you would want to quickly go and make one. Or to put things in place because you've heard that tomorrow your life is going to be ending. You're going to lose the war. You're not going to win that battle. And he was so weak. His strength had left him. It was very sad for him. And the woman felt sorry for him, the Witch of Endor. And she went to him and she said, oh, let me help you. Let me cook you something. Because she saw that he was really distressed. He was very weak. And he would not take anything. He said, no, no, no. And they tried. The woman and the two attendants that he had brought with him, the two men, they said to him, King, you need to eat something because you're not eaten all day. And so she said, I'm going to kill a calf. And she made food for him. And they encouraged him until he did eat something. And after that, he left. Now, that's the end of that story regarding King Saul and how he sought that medium, that Witch of Endor. So you understand that it has been some time in biblical times where people have been seeking spirits, communicating with the dead. And there are many present-day stories, and you will hear. Like I said, we've been looking at stories real and imagined, but that one was straight out of the Bible. We'll be going on to another story. And this one is more present day. I have to tell you this. Now, a friend of mine, she was moving from one property to the other. So she said, you know what, I'm going to be moving from this house to the other one. She told me her address where she would stay. And I said, great. All right. I said, remember, because I do believe that when you move into a new house, new property, I think you need to clean that property, say your prayers. And I do believe in using, sometimes my friend would get the holy water from one of the churches and she would go and she'd use it and she'd wipe her walls and she'd say her prayers. And, she would, being a Christian, she would come against like negative spirits, all those bad vibes. They don't want it. And whoever was living there before, whether they themselves had left anything or any kind of environment that you don't want around yourself or your children. So she said, I'm going to be moving. I said, great, great, great. I'll come and see you. Now she went into the property. Everything was okay in the property. But after a few weeks, she called me. I said, hi, what's happening, She said, well, I'm in this property, but I think this property is a haunted property. I said, really now? She said, yes, it is a haunted property. I said, how do you know? She said, she keeps hearing like there's some footsteps on the stairs. And her little baby sometimes waving. How old was he again? I think he was about maybe two, I think. He keeps waving at somebody. Bye, bye, he would say. So she was really, really afraid. So she asked me if I could come down by the house and to pray with her. I said, sure. No, this is what I call spiritual warfare. Because you're talking about not people who are alive, you could give a kick or give or slap them or so. This has to do with the spirit realm. So I said, sure, I'll come and I will pray with you. Now, I do believe when you're going into battle, you need to arm yourself. So, of course, I grabbed my Bible, I read, and I said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, that I'm praying, but we wrestle against principalities and powers. And usually, I have my olive oil at the man of God, somebody I'd known, had prayed over. And so I anointed my head and my hands with oil, and I said, I'm going down to pray. Of course, as I went down, and seriously, I felt a presence outside her door, a very strong presence. I said, wow. So I went in. As I went in and stood by the stairs, of course, the presence was even stronger. I said, wow, this house really has some spirits in here indeed. And so I said to her, I can feel a very strong presence by your stairs. And so we went into prayer, and both of us, we started to pray. And I prayed, and usually when you pray like this, usually if you go to a house and you were to sense spirits, the first thing you'll be saying, I come against the spirit in the name of Jesus. I decree, I declare that you shall not remain in here. I command you to leave here. You're going to plead the blood of Jesus, and you will. Those who are Christians and who usually take part in something like this from a Christian viewpoint, you're going to be praying and you're going to command the spirit to go, because in our belief, what we believe is that these spirits are around, or they're a part of your environment. They have no authority to be there because they have already left this realm. Their bodies, their physical bodies, it is now dead. They have died, and they have maybe they were cremated, maybe they were buried. You don't know, but they no longer have that authority to walk around as people and to be in houses and places walking around. However, their spirits, I think, and that's a deep place we go sometimes. What happened to the spirits of our dearly departed? Do they still walk around? Where are they? Where are they kept? So we prayed, and hopefully we're saying, hopefully this will be the end of it. Of course it wasn't. She called me again. She said, I feel that the spirits are still here. I said, really? She said, but she has a relative who can see into the realm of the spirit. I said, what? She said, well, I'm going to ask her to come. I said, well, do that. Yes, do that. So she called on her family member to come, because that family member can see in the realm of the spirit. So she said, when the young lady came, she came into the house and she said to her, there's a man standing at the top of your stairs. She said, really? She said, yes. She said, well, she said to her, ask him, what is he doing in here? He said to tell you he doesn't wish you any harm. She said, he said, there are spirits who are here who they wish you harm, but he's trying to look out for you and watch over you. She said, tell him that I don't want him to look out for me or watch over me. I want him out. I don't want any spirits in here. And her family member said, he walked down the stairs and he went through the door. So she went upstairs now and she said, can you see any of the spirits in my yard? She said, yes. She said, I see quite a few number of spirits in your yard. She said, they're down by the apple tree at the back of the house. She said, they're just sitting down there, some of them chatting gaily, and some of them just standing there. She said, even in other yards, she said, I can see other spirits standing there, people just chatting. She said, really? She said, yes, they're out there in the yard. However, when she asked the family member to stay with her for a few days, because she was very afraid. Of course, she stayed, I think, for 2 days, and then she left. Of course, I don't know if this spirit is planted in this property or whatever, or they used to live there before. So it happened again. She called me. She said, could you come and pray with me? I need to get down to the house. She said, but I'm so afraid. I said, okay, where are you now? She said, she's in town. I said, okay, I'll wait for you and I'll go down with you. So, of course, I always anoint myself with my holy olive oil. Anoint myself, yes, and I'm going down because, it's warfare in the realm of the spirit. Yeah, I go down and I met her and we walked down together. And can you imagine? Of course, again, as I stepped in. But there are some times when you go and you feel a presence that feels, there's a sense of evil about some of these spirits. You can feel it. You can feel the evil sometimes. Sometimes you don't really know. So I stepped in the house. Of course, I felt this thick presence of whether, I don't know how many or who, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know. And I said to her, there's a presence here in your house. I can feel it. So I walked now through the living room and going into the kitchen. And this is the first time I've ever seen something like that. I'll never forget it. I felt a real evil, eerie presence around me. And as I gently pushed the kitchen door, and something seemed to reel back into the darkness. I've never seen it before. Now look at my hands. I have a nice fat hand here. I saw a tail, a black tail, as big as my hand, a thick tail. What came to my mind was werewolf, to be frank. No, I saw nothing else but the tail. And I just began to pray and cover myself and ask God to, good Lord, watch over me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And even after that, and of course we prayed. But I want to say something to you here. What happened? That house, it was always haunted. And she left. She said, I'm going to leave this property. I'm not going to stay here because she felt so uncomfortable in the property. Now that is just one story. That's where we stop for now. The next time we'll be sharing whether the poetry. I have a poem that I want to share with you. It is by Louise Bennett. It's called Duppy Market. That's a poem I'm going to share with you next time. I know you're going to just enjoy it. So see you next time. Bye-bye.